Any questions or comments about that part so far? That brings us to verses 15 through 18. Do I have a volunteer to read verses 15 through 18? Go ahead, Steve. Yeah. So Rebecca takes Esau's nice clothes, that's goodly raiment. She realizes that Isaac may smell Jacob, and we find out later that's the case. So she puts Esau's clothes on Jacob. Then the skins of the goats. Goats are pretty hairy. Don't know if you've been around them. Shows how hairy Esau was, that she realizes that she can trick Isaac with the skins of the goats. And she puts them on Jacob's hands, which is not normally hairy at all. And once again, shows how hairy Esau was. And upon the smooth of his neck, realizing that Isaac will embrace Jacob and needs to feel the hair there for the deception to work. And then she gives him the meat and the bread. Obviously, they've been married for a very long time at this point. She knows exactly what he likes. So he comes with the food to his father in verse 18, calls out, "My father." Once again, the Hebrew word would be Abba there, the standard form of address to your father. And Isaac responds, "Here I am, who art thou, my son?" So he recognizes immediately it's his son. We find out later he hears Jacob's voice. So presumably he's thinking Jacob, but this isn't Jacob who's going to claim to be Esau.
How would the skins, I thought about, maybe those finger holes and some kind of, I've always thought, how do you put it so there's not an edge, which,
Is easy to feel, yes.
I don't know, it's just interesting how, because they must have had something where they knew how to do that quickly, because they had to be done with it.
Yeah. The way I thought about this is skinning and roasting the goats took time. And probably, I thought this last week that, Rebecca has this premeditated because she's worked out all the details. But I'm like, she has a couple hours to think about while the goats are being cooked, what's going to happen here. And she is apparently very good at working with skins. Back then, a lot of their clothes would be with skins, so it would be a lot easier. And definitely, it seems that every single piece comes together with regard to deceiving Isaac in this situation. Yes?
I wonder what they used to tan the skin underneath, because my stepdad's brother's wife, the tan teddy guys, that's the same as he, that's the one they tan the skin today.
In this case, these would not have been tanned. It's not a problem immediately. If you don't tan any type of leather, it dries out and then it cracks, and then so you're not going to be able to use it for long. But she's intending for this only to work for like a couple hours. So no tanning's needed. You just get the skins to fit.
And they may, like you said, they probably worked with that stuff all the time, so the tools were all there, and they even had a means by which you could, glue it to your skin temporarily, like the syrup, or, I don't know what.
Yeah.
Something like that, where it would be a permanent.
Absolutely. So, all that to say, she's prepared all these different parts, gets Esau's clothes, all the food prepared, and the skins ready. Jacob comes in, and in these next verses, he's going to claim to be Esau. Any other comments and such before we get there?
does hint at this, but just the emotional, I mean, I could see Jacob as soon as his dad said, you know, who art thou, my son? All of a sudden your heart, I mean, he's deceiving his father. You know, the guilt and
Yeah.
emotion.
The other thing I was wondering about is, you know, like they say chocolate, you know, L&I, they were industrial. The other one is slaughtering cattle. That's the hardest thing on your wrist. You know, those are two things right there at the top of the list.
So that brings us to verses 19 through 24. Verses 19 through 24. Do I have a volunteer to read them? Go ahead, Pastor.
And Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn. I have done according as thou badest me. Arise, I pray thee, sit and eat of my venison, that my soul may bless, or that thy soul may bless me. And Isaac said unto his son, How is it that thou hast found it so quickly, my son? And he said, Because the Lord thy God brought it to me. And Isaac said unto Jacob, Come near, I pray thee, that I may feel thee, my son, whether thou be my very son Esau or not. And Jacob went near unto his father, Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the voice of Esau. And he discerned him not, because his hands were hairy, as his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. And he said, Art thou my very son Esau? And he said, I am.
So we have here when Jacob, obviously, he tells Isaac, Abba, my father. And so Isaac knows this is his son, but asks, who is he? Maybe because he's expecting Esau, and that sounds like Jacob. Jacob responds saying, I'm Esau, thy firstborn. First lie here, I've done according as thou badest me. Second lie there, Isaac hadn't told Jacob to do anything. And then he says, Arise, I pray thee, and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless me. Why did he say arise and sit and eat? Because Isaac here would be laying in a bed. So he's asking him basically to sit up, and then you can eat of this and bless me. So Isaac realizes this is quick. It's taken hours. But anybody who's ever been hunting, especially back, presumably at this time you're hunting with spears, it's not an easy situation. It's going to take a long time. And what the cultures in Africa and such that still hunt that way with spears do is you try to wound an animal once, and then you try to chase it until it falls down, and then you hunt it, bring it back, fix it, and so on and so forth. That's generally how they hunted. And how long can a wounded deer go before it falls down from exhaustion? Depends on how badly you wounded it. But that could be a mile, a couple miles, several miles of distance. All that to say, Isaac realizes that this is an unusually fast time in terms of getting all the game hunted and prepared and such. And so he asks the natural question, well, how did you find the game so quickly? And Jacob responds, because the Lord thy God brought it to me. That's his fourth lie. And apparently at this point, Isaac had a brief suspicion here. He asks him, come near, and specifically says that I may feel whether you are my son Esau or not. So he goes, Isaac feels his hands, and apparently Esau's hands feel close enough to the skin of a goat that he couldn't tell the difference. And Jacob's hands would be the exact opposite, like normal, not extremely hairy. So in verse 23, he's deceived by feeling the hair, and so he blesses Jacob. Verse 24 would be the last time that Jacob lies here, where Isaac says, Art thou my very son Esau? And he said, I am. So a total of, in these verses, depending on how you count it, 5 or 6 lies in several verses, all to his father. Up to this point in the Bible, Jacob is definitely not the most, I'll say, high integrity example in the Bible, but we haven't seen any times where he's lied up to this point. And here to gain this blessing, He lies 6 consecutive times to his father, and it's because he's taken Rebekah's advice. Does he deserve the blessing from the point of God's choosing? Absolutely yes. Is he trusting God here? Probably not, although there are certain arguments to be made. It is important to note at this time, God had not yet revealed his law and given it to Israel, and there is no direct command from the Lord not to lie. But it is also very true. Every person's conscience knows that's wrong, and especially when you're looking at lying to an authority, like lying to your parents, every single person knows that is wrong. Jacob knew what he was doing, as he mentioned verses ago in verse 12, that if I seem to my father a deceiver, I'll bring a curse upon me and not a blessing. Why? Because Isaac would know that trying to trick him to gain Esau's blessing is like absolutely horrible, let's say it that way. But all that to say, the deception works. I remember Pastor Minnick with Mount Calvary Baptist Church, which I attended when I was at Bob Jones University, saying the difficulty with sinning for pragmatic reasons, pragmatic meaning that it will work in the moment. The difficulty with sinning for pragmatic reasons is that it often does work in the moment. That is, when you sin to get something, you very often get it. You just get other consequences and difficulties with it as well. But sin wouldn't be appealing if you didn't actually get anything for committing sin. That brings us to Isaac is going to bless Jacob here, thinking he's blessing Esau.
And I know this passage is filled with twists and turns, but it is interesting when you think of what he says in verse 22, what Isaac says. You know, this is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. So it's almost like his dad's. There's this question in his mind, even though he's going to follow through. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like there's still, this doesn't make sense, you know? And, it's interesting.
Yep, and part of that is when things don't make full sense, you usually go with what you're expecting. And he was very much expecting Esau to come in here in a very similar manner. So even though in this case he's like, everything doesn't make sense, well, that was definitely hair like Esau, and Esau's the one who's coming to get the blessing.
It does. A little side note, but if you're dealing with somebody and their stories don't match up very well, just be very careful.
Yeah.
In what you do.
Yep. So that brings us to verses 25 to 29. Do I have a volunteer to read verses 25 to 29? Go ahead, Matilda.
He said, bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son again, so that my soul may bless you. So he brought it near to him, and he ate. And he brought him wine and bread, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, come near now and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him. And he smelled like the smell of his clothing, and blessed him and said, surely thy smell, my son, is like the smell of a field, which the Lord hath blessed. Therefore, make thine eat you, O heaven, of the fatness of the air, and plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Curses be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you.
So, after Isaac is deceived now, he asks Jacob to bring the food so that he may eat it and bless him. And both culturally, along with, I guess, what would be expected in this situation, it's probably a longer meal. Isaac is probably savoring the bites, the time with his son. It says Jacob brought him wine that he could drink. So Jacob's going and getting things for him during this time. All of that to say, probably a longer meal. Don't know if that means half an hour, hour, or longer. But this verse 25 is a passing of time here. And at the end of this, Isaac's either eaten the meal fully, or perhaps he's eaten part of it and tasted the wine and such, and he's going to bless, as he thinks, Esau before finishing the meal. That's the other possibility. If he did finish a meal, it's a longer time period. If he's eaten part of it and now he's going to bless, this could be a shorter time period. But Isaac says at this time, come near and kiss me. So they kiss, being presumably on the cheek, unquestionably in this culture. Very, very normal. And smelled Esau's clothes. While they're embracing, while they're together, once again, he smells what he expects. This is smelling like Esau. And so he blesses him. First, with the observation, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field which the Lord hath blessed, referring to life. It's like, look, my son smells like all those living things outdoors. And then he's going to give the blessing here. Therefore, God, give thee of the dew of heaven. What does dew do in that culture, in that time period? One is it's refreshing. It's a hot climate. If you come out in the morning and there's dew, it's going to be enjoyable. You're actually going to love the cool dampness and such. Whereas here we tend to not like the cool dampness and love the heat more. In a hot climate, definitely it's the opposite. Dew is refreshing. And the other aspect is they didn't get a huge amount of rain. How can you farm all the year round if you only get a couple months of rain each year? Well, it's because you have dew. If you're using, even now in eastern Washington, we have types of wheat that don't need to be irrigated. They produce less, but natural grains and such are like that. The dew itself is enough water, along with you watering them whenever they start wilting, that you can raise crops, no problem. So the dew is both used for raising crops and it's refreshing. And then he says, therefore God give thee of the fatness of the earth. That's referring to plenty. Giving him plenty, giving him the best, giving him what he needs for life. The idea of fatness is the very best, the very highest quality, the best tasting, that idea. I was thinking, once again, this is before the Mosaic Law, so the patriarchs were allowed to eat fat, which is not the case afterward. And he says here, God give, in the third part, plenty of corn and wine. The more I studied it, the more the corn is out of place. Why? Because Jacob was the one who was farming. Jacob was the one, corn is referring to grain here, who would normally be raising grain and such. And similar thing, grapevines, orchards, vineyards. That's more of what Jacob would do than what Esau would do. I wonder if when Isaac is giving this blessing, he's thinking that Esau would be able to obtain this, like by selling game, by his greatness in general. But Esau was not the one whose personality was lending itself to corn and wine. That's the first part is basically just plenty, prosperity, and more than enough for life, abundance. That's verse 28. Then we get to verse 29, and verse 29 is the heart of the blessing. Let people serve thee. That's the idea of people that aren't of our family. Let other people serve you, and nations bow down to you. So other people serve you as in be your servants. Nations bow down to you as in the idea of showing you honor. So he's, in this sense, from verse 28 on, it's important to realize this is a prayer. He starts verse 28 by saying, God give thee, and then he lists all of these things. He's praying to God that God would give this, as he thinks to Esau, but it's to Jacob. So he asks for other people to be his servants. He asks for other nations to bow down to him, showing him great honor. Be Lord over thy brethren. The Hebrew word there, Adonai, is very strong. It's normally used of the Lord, but it deals with being in complete authority. So he's saying, be Lord. I found it interesting that he said brethren. The only thing I can think is he's thinking of the extended family here and the other branches, both Ishmael's branch of the family, as well as maybe the branch of his family that's still back in Haran. But he's saying, have the authority over all of them. Let thy mother's sons bow down to me. Remember, the word sons in Hebrew and all the way through the Old Testament means descendants. It can mean sons, grandsons, great-grandsons, great-great-grandsons, and all the way down. The word sons doesn't just mean one generation down the way it does in English. So he's asking for, look, all of your relations from me and my mother on down, all of them to show you honor too. He's praying and asking God that that would come to pass. And then he passes the blessing given to Abraham and the blessing given to Isaac. The Lord directly spoke, cursed be him that cursed thee, and blessed be him that blesseth thee, to Abraham and to Isaac. He directly spoke it to both of them at different times in their lives. Now Isaac speaks that to Jacob, praying to the Lord. Same thing, that the Lord would uphold the blessing to the patriarchs as he thinks to Esau, but he's blessing this to Jacob. So we have the blessing, just the abundance in general. We have in verse 29, the honor, that other people as well as all of his family would honor him, that he would have the authority over his brothers, and also that other people would serve him. And then the passing of the blessing, cursed be him that curseth thee, and blessed be him that blesseth thee. Any questions or comments here? Well, right after he gives this blessing, now we're going to see the deception comes undone, but Jacob has gained what he and Rebekah wanted. Do I have a volunteer to read verses 30 to 33? Go ahead, Obi. So, yet scarce gone out. I mean, we're talking about minutes rather than hours. Jacob has left after being blessed, and Esau comes in with the hunting. And so he was able to hunt very quickly because he has hunted whatever he caught, and he has barbecued it, and all that came with that, and fully prepared it. And he asks almost the exact same thing that Jacob asks in verse 31. He says, let my father arise and eat of his sons venison, that thy soul may bless me. So we know because of this, Isaac is laying back down again. This is why in the previous verses, I think it's more likely that Isaac finished the whole meal before blessing Jacob, rather than that he just ate part of it, because it seems like he's lying back down again. And between that and the conversation, it seems like he's eaten everything that Jacob brought. Yes?
Just a little thought back to that previous section, two things. One, I was thinking the conversation, there's probably much more than is here, that every moment, Jacob is talking to his dad. His voice is very clear. And I'm wondering if verse 27 again is this question mark in Isaac's mind. Yes, there was an aspect coming here so I can bless you, probably laid his hands on him. But the fact, come here, I want to smell you. I mean, he may not have said that right away, but, come here, and then he smelled him. So it's interesting, all of that play of inside Jacob's, Isaac's mind about, is this the guy? Is this really the guy? Is this?
Yeah. So I very much would agree that when Isaac asks Jacob to come near and smells the smell of his clothing, he is, in his mind, making sure that he's dealing with Esau. When I think of whether or not there was long conversation, my mind could go either way, because I do know guys that while they're eating, they do not talk. And this is a meal.
And maybe this was different, but that is, Old Testament times, when you sat down together, that was part of what you did was a conversation, fellowship.
Absolutely. Pastor makes the point that in Old Testament times, it's culturally expected there would be fellowship at any meal that you sat down together. I don't know how much that culture holds for inside the immediate family. Outside the immediate family, you will insult a guest in that type of culture. If like you go and eat and share a meal with them and you talk for less than 45 minutes with them, it will be very, very insulting to them. They're probably expecting a couple hours of conversation and getting to know, catching up on things, just discussing whatever. That's the culture. So, so he asks his father to rise up and eat and bless him. And verse 32, Isaac, his father, said unto him, Who art thou? And I can only imagine the tone of voice there, like in shock. And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn Esau. Isaac immediately knows it's true. He immediately, I guess, realizes what has happened. Isaac trembled very exceedingly. It's not from fear or anything, just from the shock, something happening so unexpected that he is shaking. And so he asks this, where is he that hath taken venison and brought it me? And I have eaten of all before thou camest, and have blessed him, yea, and he shall be blessed. The question is very rhetorical. Both he and Esau know who it is, but he asks who. And Esau has none of the corroborating situational evidence that Isaac has, but Esau immediately knows it's Jacob with this part. So I mentioned and talked with Pastor afterward. The passage in Hebrews says, by faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau concerning things to come. And Pastor mentioned, and in both thinking about it that morning after talking with him and in the future, I'm convinced he's right, that the faith that Isaac exercised in blessing Jacob and Esau was that on this point when he realizes he's blessed Jacob, he stands with it. And he does not bless Esau or try to reverse what he's done or anything of that sort. Notice the end. This is like within seconds after Isaac has realized he's been deceived. He said, I have eaten of all before thou camest and have blessed him, yea, and he shall be blessed. It's not like, oh, now I'll see what I can do to undo this or see what I can do to change things. He said, I've blessed him and he shall be blessed.
When you think back what Jacob said to his mom, you know, that he's going to know I'm a deceiver and he's going to curse me,
Yeah.
that doesn't happen.
Yes.
You know, so that would go with what you're saying.
So, Isaac has basically said, when he realizes it's Esau, look, your blessing's been taken away. I blessed him, your brother, and he shall be blessed. Esau has done everything that Isaac's commanded. Jacob's not directly, but very much indirectly disobeyed Isaac, and yet Isaac stands with this. And I very much agree with the testimony after talking with Pastor and such. That's what Hebrews is talking about by faith. He realizes that there's part of God's purpose in this, that Jacob would be blessed. Any further comments before we go to verse 34? Yes, Matilda. Deceit. So that will be good. Thank you. So we have here when Esau hears that basically Isaac says, I've blessed him. It says he cried with an exceeding great and bitter cry. Like, obviously, this was to be like the high moment of his life, and it's gone, and he's already hated Jacob, and this is not going to make things better. So the first solution Esau has to fix this is, bless me also. Okay, you gave the blessing to him, give me the same blessing. And once again, we have Isaac refuses to change his mind when Esau asks to be blessed the same way. In verse 35, Isaac responds, thy brother came with subtlety, meaning trickery, and has taken away your blessing. So then, Esau's next thing to do is he complains about Jacob. Is he not rightly named Jacob? Remember, the word Jacob in Hebrew means grabbing the heel, but it also means supplanting because it has the idea of tripping somebody ahead of you to take their place. And so he says, he's rightly named supplanter, for he has supplanted me these 2 times. Took away the birthright. That was mean maybe, but it was fair. And behold, now he's taken away thy blessing. This is obviously not at all fair. This was very much by deceit. So then his next solution after complaining is, well, haven't you left a blessing for me? You gave him a blessing. Well, what about leaving me a blessing? And Isaac's response is basically, sorry, you're out of luck because, look, I made him your Lord, put him in authority over you. All his brethren, like all the rest of the people in our extended family, have given to him for servants. Corn and wine, I've sustained him, which is the stuff that Jacob would normally farm. It's interesting how that worked out. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? I gave him all of this. What can I give you? Obviously, a sorrowful situation, but once again, Isaac is standing fast in his purpose. And so then Esau comes up with his third solution, and this one Isaac will do. His third solution, Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also. The idea, okay, you blessed Jacob, now bless me also. He's not just saying, bless me, and then reinforcing, bless me. He's like, you've blessed Jacob, now bless me also is the idea. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. So he now asks for a second blessing. Okay, you gave Jacob the great blessing, now bless me as well. And he weeps over this. We find out once again in Hebrews, the commentary on this is he found no place for repentance. This wasn't a change of mind or of actions. He wasn't able to change Isaac's mind regarding the promise. And the reason given for this in Hebrews is that Esau was profane, meaning unholy, and godless, meaning he didn't think about God or the things of the future or the things of the promise. And so nothing changes here when he weeps and he basically wants what Jacob got. And he does ask for a second blessing here at his third proposal. And this one Isaac will agree to and will give him a second blessing. Any comments before we get there?
I was just going to say, just as far as if people are reading through that Hebrews passage, that he found no place of repentance, that didn't have to do with himself, but that had to do with his dad, as you mentioned.
So, I've always thought it had to do with both.
Well, that could be.
Yeah, that he couldn't change his dad's mind and he didn't change his own mind. But all that to say, the Hebrews passage is basically referring, don't let anybody in the church be like this, only minded on earthly things with no mind for the Lord. Because look what happened to him. He wanted the blessing at the end and he was rejected. He didn't get what he could have got, what was rightfully his, because of the way he lived his life. And it's a warning. In fact, a lot of the last half of Hebrews is warnings. It's God has done so many great things for us, now we need to live accordingly. So, we have here then, Isaac will bless him, and because of time I'll read verses 39 to 40. We'll talk about them briefly and I'll stop here. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. and by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. So Isaac responds and gives him this blessing. In verse 39, he blesses Esau almost the same way as he blesses Jacob with regard to abundance, the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven, plenty and the best food, and the dew of heaven for refreshment and for God's provision there. The first part of the blessing is almost exactly the same. And the second part, he says, by thy sword shalt thou live. The idea is with force. With your force you shall keep things together, keep things in check, and shall serve thy brother. Once again, he's made Jacob the Lord. So he says, okay, you're going to serve him, but that will only be temporary. This is referring very much in the future to Esau's descendants, not Esau himself. Esau's descendants, the Edomites, shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, when you want to rule yourself is the idea, not when you want to rule Jacob, but when you want to rule yourself, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. He blesses that Esau's descendants would have the strength when they are basically becoming their own kingdom, that they would break off the dominion of Jacob. And ironically, I did not fully have time, I completely forgot to research this. I had the time, I was going to. I am very sure without research, based on what I've read before, that King Herod himself at the time of the Bible is actually an Edomite. And that he is now having dominion over Israel for a very brief time when that family was in charge. But the Edomites lived by themselves as this kingdom that nobody got near for quite a while. And there are only a couple times ever where they're under the dominion of Israel. That's part of the blessing here, that Jacob would not have complete authority over Esau. And any comments before we close the study? Okay, let's close in prayer. Dear Lord God, I thank you for today, and I thank you how this passage makes clear that your purposes are always fulfilled, even with a very difficult situation, humanly speaking, that didn't affect the promises to Jacob and by extension to us at all. We thank you for your faithfulness there. We pray that you be honored and glorified the rest of this service. In Jesus' name, amen.